Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host DD and joining me once again today is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we'll be previewing the 2021 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So, let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, what is going on? There is much to talk about besides just previewing Baku with all that is going on in the F1 paddock. So let's start at the Red Bull wing controversy. What is your take on, I know we'd already talked about it during our previous podcast, but what is your take on the Christian Horner versus Toto Wolff fight that is going on regarding this controversy?
Well, I am no fan of any Christian Horner versus Toto Wolff fight, but I think I think this time the stakes are even higher, and Toto Wolff knows that. With Red Bull now leading the championship, and with Red Bull potentially the strongest team, strongest car on the grid right now, I think Toto Wolff is making it a lot of, is pressuring FIA and Formula One into this even more than he would have 2 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I've never seen Toto Wolff so flustered and giving out mixed comments about these things. I've never seen Toto Wolff so, I wouldn't say off his game, but Toto Wolff's words have always kind of made sense, and this is like the first time that whatever's coming out of Toto Wolff is not making any more sense, and I think it's just the pressure of continuing that championship winning streak that's getting to him.
Absolutely.
And I guess he finally feels the threat, because even going into Monaco, it was not a huge deal. Lewis made a couple of comments offhand, and then Max didn't really reply to it. But then Christian was asked about it, and then he just said just look at your front wing
Yeah.
and things like that. And it wasn't as big or as dramatic as it is now. And after the Monaco weekend, once Red Bull took the lead, it just seems that things got a little bit of out of hand. Especially Mercedes did have a dreadful weekend in Monaco, so I guess Toto Wolff finally lost a bit of cool. But where do you think this controversy heading? Because there have been threats of protest both against the rules that the FIA is bringing in and against each other amongst the teams. So where do you see this heading?
I mean, see, Red Bull, Ferrari, and Alfa Romeo, all three have said that yes, their wings do flex at high speeds, and they do flex beyond the give provided by FIA, but they do pass the regulations, they do pass the test, right? So I don't see where the issue stands, because it's the gray area we have always talked about in Formula One. The gray area makes Formula One so great, and the gray area makes all these innovations and all these performance indicators all. Now heading into Baku, that long straight, and combine that with the high downforce turns, 90-degree turns, and it's a high downforce section, the section around the old city and all those areas. Now Baku would be a great differentiator and great indicator for how this setup works for Red Bull, because they will get great pace on the straight, and they already have a high downforce car in that regard. So I believe that is why Toto Wolff wanted those regulations to end before Baku, but we are going into France with them.
Once again, absolutely on point, Vedant, today. I mean, you are just on fire. But yeah, like you said, Baku is a street circuit where not just for Red Bull, you'll be able to see how all the teams, have performance gains through these flexi wings that you're talking about. But yeah, I don't see, with all these protests and anything, I don't see FIA working any faster than they already are. I was kind of surprised that the FIA clamped down this season, considering how, like this has been brought up again and again, how Mercedes were allowed to use the DAS system
exactly.
for the entire season, even though it was in the grey area in the rules. It was banned according to the rules. And just the fact that the FIA are clamping down this season, during the season, and not letting the teams roll with the current regulations till the end of the season.
I mean, if the DAS would have been banned last season, Lewis Hamilton would have been the first person to come out and say they are trying to slow us down. And
Absolutely, yep.
we don't see that coming from Max Verstappen. And that just shows what mentality and what, who operates how.
Who's under pressure
Exactly.
and who's not under pressure right now. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see this going anywhere. Like I said, FIA won't be doing anything faster or slower just because Toto Wolff and Lewis Hamilton are not happy.
Exactly.
There are 10 other teams that they need to take into consideration. And also there are, in the background, we always forget, but there are budget restrictions this year. And every rule change that they bring in mid-season is going to affect that budget in one way or the other. So that is another thing to look out for.
Certainly.
But yeah, anyway.
I mean, those, they gave them 4 or 5 weeks or whatever time. And I think that still was the minimum time they could have given the teams to redesign and redevelop their wings. And I mean, Toto Wolff is still not happy with it, and I can't see how else he would be happy if they are not banned right now. So yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And this is not something new. Flexi wings have been there forever, and you can see how this championship battle is bringing out the intricacies and how the teams are looking at the smallest details, not just to make their car faster, but to bring their competitor down.
Exactly.
But yeah, anyway, about the wing controversy, it doesn't really catch my imagination. I'd be happy if they just left it alone and let them do it out on track.
Yeah, I mean,
but,
it's just a small political ploy in the height of a championship battle, which Mercedes find themselves after so many years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about the qualifying rule change now. Again, Toto Wolff came out and he was not happy about what happened in qualifying during Monaco, and we kind of didn't acknowledge this in our Monaco review because we didn't think it would scale to such height where FIA would come out and said that they're actually reviewing the potential of making a rule change. But now since they have come out and said it, John Todd has said that the FIA is looking into making that rule change. I think it is only fair that we talk about it. So what are your thoughts on this rule change? That that anyone who crashes during qualifying, his lap time should be deleted so that the other people are not affected by it, or they don't gain an unfair advantage by crashing or bringing out red flags during a session.
I believe it is an unnecessary change in regulations. I mean, see, their motive is correct. Their motive is absolutely correct because they want everyone to have equal chance, equal opportunities. But the way they are doing it is wrong because nobody is going to crash deliberately. Everyone wants to be on pole. Everyone wants to improve their lap time. And I mean, it was Monaco. We have seen these incidents in Monaco in the past, and that is the only reason why it became a talking point. Had it been Austria or had it been any other normal circuit and someone would have crashed, it would not have been such a big issue. For me, to tackle this is don't let the clock run out. Give them enough time to complete at least one more run, just like we saw in Monaco E-Prix in Formula E. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with that. But people keep bringing up this argument that other race series like IndyCar have this rule. So what do you think about that argument? Is there much merit to that? Is that a reason why F1 should consider it? Yeah.
Absolutely not. I mean, IndyCar has so many other rules. Every series has different rules, and that IndyCar rule has been going on for ages now, I believe. But I mean, I still don't agree with that rule in IndyCar. It is there, but I don't agree with it. And same with here. I mean, I don't like the fact that you disqualify essentially that driver who has put it into Q3 and might be running in P1 P2 after the first run. So they have put it their own merit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there are other arguments like, that drivers in the past have crashed willingly, just to win the championship or, stay ahead in the championship fight. And those are all fair arguments. But then again, I think that's a debate about sportsmanship. And I think you can put in special rules and regulations for that. And I think even if, FIA were to go down the road of making this qualifying rule change, I think it's just another hole that FIA will dig themselves, like I've said before, because there's a lot of gray area. What happens because bringing out a red flag and basically stopping a session is might be a clear cut issue, might be black and white to most people, but what happens in other nuances of the same when such a thing happens, because we've seen a lot of times that someone will have an off in the sector 3 and drivers will be making that last corner, but then they'll have to slow down and abort the lap because someone brought out the yellow flags. So what happens in those nuances where people have an off and these things happen in qualifying, and it can happen anywhere. And we saw in Mugello last year that a lot of people had an off during qualifying. George Russell had an off. So I think these nuances get really intricate, and the penalties that will come along with them will again get too nuanced. And we've seen that FIA as a sporting body does not do a good job of regulating any sort of penalties in any sort of cases. So I just don't want the sport to have another, more controversies going forward because of this rule change. And,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
I'm pretty happy with where we are as of now.
As you said, if they only disqualify someone when there's a red flag, okay, agree till that. But what if there's a yellow flag and some other team principal says no, that should have been a red flag, and that should have been a disqualification, and then the political battle and all these issues will go deeper and deeper, and that's not what we want.
Yep. And yeah, again, it just comes down to, I mean, if drivers and teams are doing that, then it just comes down to disciplinary action and penalties that are under the sportsmanship conduct rather than just the technical rules and regulations.
Yeah. And I think Michael Schumacher did get penalized when he crashed out, when he parked.
Did he get a race ban? Was it?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but he did get penalized when he parked his car at Raskas in 2006 or 5, and I think that because everybody knew that he had done it intentionally, and that was given a race ban. Now, in case of Charles Leclerc, even Max Verstappen, who took P2 and who would have taken pole in Monaco, defended Charles that is a mistake everybody can make and everybody will make in Monaco. So yeah, that is really unnecessary in my opinion.
Well, that is our views on the qualifying rule change, and I don't think Formula One or the FIA should encourage that. But let's move on to the next topic that we have. So there's been a Motorsport.com article that talks about no more wind tunnels from 2030, and apparently this has been an ongoing conversation in the F1 paddock for the last few years. And apparently, according to Motorsport.com, 8 out of 10 teams are on board with making this change. So basically, by the end of 2030, all F1 teams are willing to switch to CFD only as a CFD and track testing, during test days as a means of developing their aerodynamic package rather than having a wind tunnel. On the grounds that that wind tunnels are inefficient, they require a lot of energy, and F1 is trying to move towards a sustainable future with zero carbon emissions and so on and so forth. So it does not exactly fit F1's image of sustainability. Although Motorsport.com also did point out for its readers that Mercedes used an alternative energy power source to power its wind tunnel, which is a part of their sustainability drive. So maybe that is another option, but anyway, let's not get so far into that first. What are your primary thoughts about it? Is it something that's possible? Where do you see this debate going?
I mean, it's interesting because we have seen CFD grow more and more over the years, and till now, the CFD and the wind tunnel were, working hand in hand. I don't know much about aerodynamics, and I don't know how that development works. But I mean, it will be interesting if the wind tunnels get completely banned out, and how the teams will cope up with that.
Absolutely, and in that article and other articles too, that I've read over the past couple of days, obviously the engineers and the team principals have pointed out that switching to CFD today, as of today, is not possible just because the correlation between CFD track testing and wind tunnel is not exactly there, and it still takes time. And we've seen teams like Haas, Ferrari struggle in the recent past with wind tunnel correlation and CFD correlation and so on and so forth. And again, the issue of the budget comes in that if you're not having as much wind tunnel testing time, although it makes up about £5 million of the total budget that is spent on just keeping the wind tunnel running with all the power that's needed and the people and everything. Then teams might start switching to on-track testing during practice sessions and things as such, and that also adds some cost to the overall budget. So there's also that debate, but it seems like the teams are definitely optimistic about being able to switch to CFD only methodologies and not having any wind tunnels after 2030. Obviously, that will take a lot of development in the CFD software packages itself and how the teams use there, and there the processes and tools that every team use are different at the end of the day. And it'll be interesting to see how all of them and their suppliers, their partners, cope with this demand. But that also brings a question of teams that are currently investing in building a new wind tunnel. What does it mean for them? Because we know McLaren and Aston Martin are upgrading their facilities to have wind tunnel. So what does this rule change mean for them?
I think the two teams not agreeing to the wind tunnel are them, Aston Martin and McLaren. So, I mean, obviously it's an investment and they would have known, hopefully, that these talks are going on. As you said, they have been going on for the past few years. But then again, it's 10 seasons from now. And McLaren and Aston Martin are on an upward trajectory so far. And they want to get to that point, get to that championship leading point. So if it helps them right now, it's great. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
And obviously, there's more nuances to how the cost works and how exactly these teams conduct the wind tunnel testing. Like they're not scale parts, they're prototype parts, they're not production parts. And then there's also the issue of safety on track, because if you're directly making parts from CFD studies and then bringing it on track, there's always the element of whether or not the parts will survive actual operating conditions,
real world.
So there's a lot to consider, and if we can't cover everything in this particular podcast, but if you're really interested, go check out the article on motorsport.com. I think the article's title is "Can F1 Really Give Up Wind Tunnels by 2030?" It's a great article. It talks about a lot of things, so definitely go check that out. Now let's look back at Monaco once again. I know we're not supposed to talk about Baku right now, but you asked me at the end of our Monaco review podcast that should Monaco be on the calendar, and I just said yes, and we ended it at that because we agreed on the issue. But ever since then, there have been a lot of YouTube content creators and just general public talking about Monaco being on the race calendar even after the race, and I think it's just the fact that people are still failing to realize that how important that race was to the season, not just historically, and the other aspects of racing that are at play at Monaco, which are not at play at other circuits as much, and how racing is not just about passing and overtaking, but racing is also about strategy and qualifying and practice and everything else that eventually leads up to a great season, a great race. And I think there's a disconnect between casual fans and other veteran fans. There's just like some miscommunication in the community, and I think there needs to be a clearer picture of why Monaco is such a sought after event, because I think there was talk that there was speculation that Monaco is the most viewed event on the F1 calendar throughout the globe, and I think Will Buxton confirmed that in his episode of this week that he came out with last week. So Yeah, so that just goes to show that how much of an important role Monaco plays on the F1 calendar.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's, as you said, other than the prestige and other than the history and everything else, if you only take Monaco as a part of the season, every season, it is one of the most influential races in some ways. And I don't think Formula One should get rid of Monaco for many reasons, which we have already covered.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, the one other person making headlines after Monaco was Carlos Sainz, and everybody is just hailing Carlos Sainz as the best driver on the grid right now. Obviously, there was debate, and everybody's referring to the Carlos Sainz and Ferrari debate because there was both speculation that Ferrari made a wrong decision signing Carlos Sainz instead of Daniel Ricciardo or other talent that was available on the grid in 2020. And there was also speculation that with Ferrari's decline in performance last year, that Carlos Sainz made the wrong decision to move to Ferrari, and it seems both of those decisions have been proven wrong. Both of those speculations have been proven wrong, and both those decisions have been proven right for both parties involved.
Absolutely. I mean, see, if we step into the shoes of Carlos Sainz, he in 2019 and 2020 he was at Ferrari at McLaren, sorry, and he was performing well, and McLaren were on an upward trajectory. But as a Formula One driver, when you get offered a seat by Ferrari, you take it. You take it. I mean, there is no questions asked. Obviously, there are multiple things in play, and people might decline the seat, but that Ferrari seat, that scarlet color seat and racing overalls and the car are so sought after in the sport, you can't not think about it.
Yep, absolutely, and it just seems more and more likely that Mick Schumacher will have to wait his turn for that Ferrari seat, and it won't come to him that straightforward anymore. But definitely Carlos Sainz has made an impact in that Ferrari seat, and it just goes to show that even when Charles Leclerc, who's the leading man at Ferrari, arguably, even though they might say they're all equal and stuff like that, but had a bad weekend. But Carlos, put it P2 and came home with the only points for Ferrari. But now, let's get to Baku finally, man. 20 minutes into this podcast already. Let's finally get to Baku. So, what are the talking points? I think the biggest talking point for me is Baku has hosted 4 races so far, 2016 to 2019, and there have been 4 different winners. And out of the current World Championship, Max Verstappen is the one who's not won at Baku. Lewis Hamilton has won in Baku. Valtteri Bottas has won in Baku. But Max Verstappen has not won in Baku. So can we expect another Red Bull win going into this Grand Prix?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, the track in Baku suits the Red Bull package right now. Max Verstappen is in the form of his life. Mercedes themselves are under pressure, and we know from the past that Mercedes fail to deliver when they are under pressure. Yes, they might come back stronger and all that stuff, but they oftentimes they fail to deliver when they are under pressure. And I think this is the right time for Max Verstappen and Red Bull to punch them and punch them hard.
Absolutely, people were disappointed that even though Red Bull for the first time, came out of the blocks fast for the first time in like all the turbo hybrid era seasons, but at the same time, Lewis showed up to the first race too, and it was neck and neck ever since. But I think this, like you said, this is an opportunity for Red Bull to actually, one up Mercedes and take the lead a bit more further, so that the championship can actually live. But let's look at Mercedes now. People have been talking about a Mercedes comeback. We know that Mercedes usually come back stronger from their failures, whether it was back in Germany in 2019, I think, or their Sakir GP last year with Valtteri Bottas and George Russell. That was a bad mix-up there. So what can we expect from them? And we know that the Mercedes are not strong in the slow speed corners like we saw in Baku. It took them a lot of effort, and only Valtteri could get the tires into the right window and put a lap together. Lewis was not able to do that. And while Baku has all slow speed corners, medium speed corners, and fast straights, it just seems that the Mercedes package is not exactly there for Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, especially after the Monaco weekend.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, for me, Mercedes are not the favorites. As I said, they might come back stronger in the sense of coming back from a miserable Monaco weekend, but that is where they are. They are a strong team. They are the championship contenders. So having like only what 8 or 10 points, bringing only 8 or 10 points is not what they are used to, and that is a bad weekend from them. So they will definitely come back from that, but they will not, in my opinion, they will not be able to fight. They will like Max
They won't be
Verstappen,
winning
yeah,
the race.
yeah,
And that goes to show. My next point was the fact that Lewis Hamilton hasn't he's been successful at Baku, but he hasn't had the best weekends like race days at Baku, because I think in 2017 he was basically handed the win from Valtteri because he had to lead the championship because of the way the championship was. So Mercedes basically asked Bottas to switch places with Hamilton and give him the win. And then again in 2018, Bottas was leading the race, but he had a puncture a couple laps before the finish. So Lewis Hamilton inherited the lead of the race and won that race. And Bottas won the race finally in 2019. So Bottas does well at the circuit, but we know that Bottas doesn't have the pace that Lewis has necessarily. So he won't be challenging Max outright. But that also goes to show that, that Lewis might still not have a great race this upcoming weekend just because of the track record he's had at Baku so far.
absolutely. And another thing I'll add, that we know that Mercedes is the Mercedes car is not suited for following. It is only suited to for leading that race, for leading races, right? And at Baku we have a long straight and heavy braking zone. Now, even though Mercedes might qualify ahead and Max Verstappen starts behind, if Max Verstappen gets that overtake done and gets that lead, Mercedes will struggle behind him in the the latter part of the circuit. And and even though it's a long straight, but a lot can happen there.
Absolutely, and we'll just have to wait and watch what really happens. But another talking point out of the Monaco weekend was Ferrari's pace in the slower sectors, and we know that Baku, the first couple of sectors are slow speed sections essentially, most of it. So can we expect Ferrari to be on pace with the McLarens, or even with the Mercedes, over a single lap? Can we expect Ferrari to be in the mix even this week? And I know Mattia Binotto has come out and said that it's not necessarily that the pace that they had in Monaco will translate to other circuits, whether that's Baku or Hungary or any other circuits with slow speed sections, and that is fair enough. But Carlos and Charles seem a lot more comfortable in that car. So can we expect Ferrari to be in the mix for maybe a podium or the best of the rest?
I think Ferrari can easily hope for best of the rest with Daniel Ricciardo still struggling in the McLaren. But if Ricciardo gets to grip with the car, and again Baku is one of his favorite tracks. He loves the place, and he loves that overtaking opportunity at main straight. If Daniel Ricciardo can get to grips with the car, I believe McLaren still have a stronger car and stronger package than Ferrari.
Yeah, definitely. Like going into Monaco, we saw McLaren, struggling in the last sector in Spain, and then we were like, McLaren's not going to be there, but we saw what Lando did with the car, and we know that the McLaren is really good in the medium speed and high speed corners, and it's definitely faster than the Ferrari in the straights. So it's definitely another Ferrari versus McLaren weekend that we're looking forward to. But can we expect? I feel that the McLarens will come out. At least Lando will come out ahead of Charles and Carlos in the McLaren. So can we expect another outside chance for Lando to have another podium this weekend?
I would love that.
You would love that,
Yeah.
but do you see that happening?
I
Because
mean,
in my opinion, the McLaren might just be on pace with the two Mercedes, just enough to keep up with them. and a little mishap here and there, a little mistake, and Lando will be on that podium.
Exactly. Lando Norris is running P5 every race except Barcelona, of course. He's running P5 every race. And that's how he got his 2 podiums after mishaps at the front. So that is exactly what McLaren would be hoping for, running P4, P5 every race during the weekend. And yeah, any mishap, because we know Baku, again, a street circuit, and we have seen interesting races play out at Baku. So that they might have an outside chance for the podium, absolutely.
Absolutely. But it worries me about Sergio Perez a little bit in that Red Bull. He really needs to, especially now since the championship is level once again, Sergio Perez really needs to put a lap together on qualifying day to be able to, help out Max Verstappen in that battle, because from what it looks like, it's again going to be one Red Bull versus the duo of Mercedes
yeah.
On race day. Which brings me to this another question, regarding Red Bull and their driver recruitment. So arguably, you could say that Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, and Sergio Perez are people who perform well on Sunday. They're not they're not qualifiers. They're not the best people, to put the car, up ahead, on the front row. So does Red Bull need to look into that? Because all the last 3 drivers that they have had, none of them are the best qualifiers on the grid. So does Red Bull need someone who can put it up there on a Saturday, regardless, and take a bit of hit on like a Sunday race pace or something like that? Do they need a driver who's a Saturday master and not, the best racer on Sunday?
That is a very, very interesting topic. A very interesting point you bring up. And I mean, I hadn't thought about it, but now that you say it, that is what they are struggling with, Red Bull. They don't have that car, that second car to fight with them, fight with the Mercedes. And yeah, I mean, I hope they look into it. But as you were saying it, that brought up a suggestion in my mind, and that is Valtteri Bottas. We know Valtteri Bottas can put it out there on a Saturday, and we know he matches and he beats Lewis Hamilton in qualifying. And if by any chance Mercedes give that seat to George Russell and Valtteri Bottas loses out, Red Bull can easily scoop him up and have that second car right there, I believe.
Yeah, that's a good point you make too. That's interesting. That's something to think about. Anything else from your side for the Baku weekend?
I'm just worried about Daniel Ricciardo, because getting lapped by his teammate in Monaco and still not getting that performance that he needs. We have seen Carlos Sainz is the best of the movers right now. Even Sebastian Vettel got great points in Monaco. Sergio Perez got great points in Monaco. Daniel Ricciardo is still struggling. And like Baku is, as I said, one of his favorite tracks, but it is very hard on the brakes, especially turn 1 and turn 3. If Daniel Ricciardo, and I mean, I think he is struggling with the brakes because the Red Bull's braking performance and the Renault's braking performance.
I mean, Andreas Seidel came out and talked about it himself.
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
It is the brakes that Daniel Ricciardo is struggling with.
Exactly. So he needs to get them right, and I mean, we would love to see the Daniel Ricciardo dive bombs into turn 1.
Absolutely.
Can he do it this weekend? I'm not entirely sure, and I'm genuinely worried about him.
Well, I'm also worried about Charles, winning it this weekend. He won it in 2019. He was about to put it on pole.
Yeah.
And then through the castle section. And it's become a meme ever since, I am stupid. So hopefully it's Charles versus another street circuit all over again. But hopefully, Charles will be able to put together a lap without winning his car into the wall, hopefully, this weekend. And bring home some points, not just for Ferrari, but also for my fantasy team. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, that's all from my side. If you have nothing else, Vedant, all I have to say is thank you for joining me once again on this podcast, and I'm excited for the race. Baku is one of my favorite street circuits too, and I'm excited for the race. So I'll catch you next weekend.